Well, the focus was about strengthening bilateral relationships, okay? Provide opportunities for each other and explore several areas.
In the corridors of Niamey's presidential palace, the kind of handshake that history remembers was exchanged. What followed was no ordinary diplomatic visit. Over just 48 hours, Niger and Chad's leaders signed a pact whose scope defies the usual pace of African diplomacy. No endless committees, no drawn-out communiques, no ceremonial photo ops. This was swift, surgical, and aimed squarely at reshaping the balance of power in a region where the rules have too often been written by outsiders. Chadian President Mahamat Idris Deby did not come to Niamey for pleasantries. He came with an agenda, and he left with a blueprint. In just 2 days, the two governments committed to a partnership that touches nearly every lever of state power: defense coordination, trade facilitation, digital connectivity, infrastructure building, and perhaps most importantly, the removal of barriers between their people. This was no single-issue deal. It was a re-engineering of their bilateral relationship. One of the pact's most strategic moves is the revival of the Niger-Chad Grand Joint Commission. Dormant for years, it is being resurrected as the nerve center to oversee the implementation of this sweeping partnership. Its role is simple but crucial: ensure that what was agreed in a flash of political will survive the grind of governance. The Commission will track timelines, mediate disputes before they escalate, and make sure Niamey and N'Djamena speak with one voice in regional forums. In a Sahel fractured by shifting alliances, such institutional unity is both rare and powerful. But beyond institutions, the pact drills deep into the human layer of relations. The decision to grant visa exemptions for citizens traveling between the two countries is more than a bureaucratic adjustment. It dismantles one of the region's most persistent barriers: mobility. For traders, this means freedom from weeks of delays at border crossings. For students, the chance to cross borders for education without being buried in paperwork. For families divided by colonial-era lines, it means reunions without months of bureaucratic agony. In practical terms, Niamey and N'Djamena are transforming their frontier from a checkpoint into a corridor of exchange. The pact also extends into the digital and infrastructural future. Deals were signed to fast-track fiber-optic interconnection, opening the door to more stable high-speed internet, streamlined government systems, and entrepreneurial access to digital markets, even in the remotest villages. Alongside this, commitments to accelerate the Salkadamna energy project and integrate the Trans-Saharan Highway reflect a vision where asphalt and fiber lines carry prosperity just as effectively as pipelines carry oil. On the security front, the pact is equally ambitious. Both nations pledged coordinated defense operations against insurgencies in the Sahel and Lake Chad Basin. The details are deliberately scarce, but the intent is clear: joint patrols, intelligence sharing, and legal frameworks that close the loopholes militants exploit. This is not about brute force alone. It is about denying armed groups both the physical and legal spaces to operate. Taken as a whole, the agreement reflects both urgency and foresight. Urgency because the Sahel cannot afford to let instability, economic stagnation, and foreign dependency dictate its fate. Foresight because each clause is designed not only for immediate relief, but to lock both nations into a shared long-term trajectory. Yet, within this sweeping vision, one detail stands out: the central role of diesel fuel. Why would something as specific as fuel supply take center stage in a deal covering everything from defense to digital connectivity? The answer lies in Chad's dependency. Diesel in Chad is lifeblood. It powers irrigation pumps on rural farms, military vehicles on volatile front lines, and the very infrastructure that sustains the economy. But Chad's supply chain is fragile. Imports are costly, transport routes are vulnerable, and refining infrastructure is limited. A short disruption can trigger food shortages, stall construction, and weaken national defense. By securing a guaranteed supply from Niger, Chad is plugging a vulnerability that has haunted it for years. For Niger, meanwhile, the deal marks a transformation. It shifts from being just another exporter of raw resources to a regional energy provider, holding leverage over a neighbor's critical systems. In effect, Niamey gains a permanent stake in N'Djamena's stability. This is no casual fuel trade. The Diesel Pact is structured as a systematic supply chain, predictable, scalable, and shielded from the region's political volatility. And its backbone will be a proposed cross-border pipeline. Once built, the pipeline will cut transportation times, reduce fuel losses, and slash costs. But more importantly, it will bind Niger and Chad together in a web of interdependence. Pipelines demand joint security, synchronized trade policies, and technical coordination. They force cooperation not as an option, but as a necessity. In the process, they reshape geopolitics. Reliable, cheap fuel then becomes a multiplier. Factories run at full capacity. Trucks and buses operate without costly delays. Farmers can scale up mechanized agriculture without fear of shortages. In a region where the price of energy often defines the ceiling of growth, this pact effectively raises that ceiling. And the diesel deal is not isolated. It underpins the broader vision. Stable energy is what makes highways more than empty roads, what keeps fiber optic cables alive in remote areas, and what powers the institutions meant to manage integration. Without reliable energy, the pact risks being just words. With it, the framework gains an engine. Yet, energy also carries political weight. Fuel flows can be weaponized in moments of tension. Both sides know this, which makes the inclusion of the pact not just an act of mutual interest, but an expression of trust. A trust that will, in time, be tested. Still, even the most powerful engine needs steering. That's why the revival of the Grand Joint Commission is pivotal. For years, it was little more than a name in official documents. Now, it will serve as the central nervous system of this agreement. Its immediate priority, streamlining customs. Today, traders between Niger and Chad face a maze of inconsistent tariffs, confusing paperwork, and unpredictable inspections, conditions ripe for corruption. The new plan is to unify tariffs, digitize tracking, and harmonize trade rules so that clearance in one country automatically applies in the other. This doesn't just speed up commerce. It reduces smuggling, improves tax collection, and makes supply chains more reliable. For manufacturers, it means they can plan production without fearing sudden border delays. For consumers, it promises lower prices. Supporting this is the planned opening of a new consulate in a major cross-border hub, bringing government services closer to the communities most affected by integration. The Commission will also coordinate infrastructure projects, ensuring roads, pipelines, and digital lines don't stop at one border while stalling on the other. Still, integration is never just about economics, it's about politics. Institutions like this survive only if backed by political will. Without transparency, shared funding, and regular communication, even the most ambitious pact can collapse. By reviving it, both governments are signaling not just intent, but commitment, and they will need it. The pact is being launched in one of the most volatile regions on Earth. Both Niger and Chad face overlapping insurgencies and fragile borders. Instability in one inevitably spills into the other. That is why the pact's security pillar is designed as a shared strategy. Not two separate defenses, but one coordinated response. This means joint patrols along high-priority corridors, synchronized surveillance, and legal harmonization to deny militants safe havens across borders. Smugglers and insurgents have long exploited differences in national laws. This pact aims to close those gaps. Equally crucial is civilian security. Economic corridors attract organized crime as much as they promise prosperity. Protecting them requires not only military presence, but trained customs officers, anti-smuggling units, and community networks reporting threats in real time. Finally, anti-fraud systems are built in from the start. Digital tracking of goods, auditing mechanisms, and oversight measures are being established to prevent corruption from draining the pact's benefits. In essence, this agreement is designed to be more than a diplomatic headline. It aims to reshape daily life, a generator running in a village workshop, a truck delivering goods without bribes at checkpoints, a student logging into an online course across the border. These are the true measures of success. In the Sahel, where promises are often made but rarely kept, the difference between words and lived reality will determine whether this pact becomes a model of solidarity or another missed opportunity. Will this deal transform Niger and Chad into engines of regional integration? Or will it fade into the long list of unfulfilled agreements? Time will tell. But for now, one thing is certain. The 48-hour handshake in Niamey has set in motion a bold experiment in African sovereignty, interdependence, and survival.